All right, we're back for another episode. Dr. Paul Savage. It's glad to be here with you. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. What were we talking about today, Joe?
We're talking about plasma exchange.
Huh? My
We've been
favorite
talking
topic.
about,
My favorite topic.
I know you live and breathe this stuff, huh? And you're
Yeah.
doing so much. And that is why we started this podcast. Of
Yeah.
course, we've been talking about toxins, the histories and the
Yeah.
effects and how that really, it lands with us as humans and
Yeah.
even the unborn. But let's talk about what plasma exchange is, actually define it, give a nice overview for everyone who is here and just wondering what the heck is plasma exchange and how does it fit in?
You know, it's not known, but you go to the average person and say therapeutic plasma exchange, and they're like, "What's that? Is that something new?" In fact, it's not new. It's very old. It's been around forever. Matter of fact, in ancient times, like in Greece and Italy and stuff. Remember when they used to put leeches on you, and the
Right.
leeches would draw blood out, or they'd actually cut you and let you bleed out for a certain period of time? That
Oh, yeah.
that that used to get people better. And now when modern medicine came along and they're like, that has no evidence, that's just hillbilly stuff. That's just hill medicine. It doesn't work. And it got poo-pooed. It's just basically we're throwing it out and not even looking at it again. Until around 1950, 1960, when some doctors were looking at some disease states and there was stuff in the blood, these type of antibodies that are bad for the kidney. And they're like, wouldn't it be nice if we just get those antibodies out? Well, if we could just get the plasma out, we'd get the antibodies out. And that's how plasma change came about. And that's how the machine came on about 20 years later. But that's why at that time, what we do is just take blood out, spin it, separate it, throw the plasma away, and then we put the cells back in. It was a very long, laborious process because we'd only do little bags at a time. And the whole process of spinning them and separating them and adding them and then letting them infuse back in, it was very tedious and complicated, just redundant.
Hmm.
Fast forward to the 1970s, and it's funny, it's based upon separating milk from cream.
Oh,
Is how
wow.
people got the idea of how to do this. And they're like, let's do that to blood. And sure enough, it separated the plasma from the cells. And they were able to do it in the same kind of mechanism that a cream separator does it on an industrial farm. And they just basically made a machine and made it a one unit thing so it could do it all at the same time, just like the cream separator did.
Hmm.
I found that very interesting when we
It's a
got that
good visual too for
yeah,
everybody to
from the farming
understand.
community. Because as we've talked about before, a plasma exchange is simply an oil change for the human. Now, you may be too young to remember when they used to bring the cars in, put them up on skits. You'd undo the oil at the bottom, let the oil drop out, and then you'd put the screw back in, and you go up to the top and you put new oil in the car, and then you'd run it around the block for about a month. And then you bring it in and you drain out the dirty oil again and put new oil in, drain it and run it around the block for 3, 4 weeks and bring it back in. And you keep doing it every time until the oil started running clean.
Hmm.
And then you knew you got most of the gunk out of the car and you could go tear out the rest of the car, do what you wanted to do. But it was running much better because clean oil means a good car. Well,
Hmm.
clean plasma means a good human. So the plasma change is very much the same thing. It's a process by which we take the blood out, we put it into a machine, it spins it, it separates the liquid, which is the plasma, from the cells, which is the solid, and then we throw the plasma away. We add the cells back to another liquid called albumin, and we infuse that back into your body. Now, albumin itself is just a neutral solution that makes sure that your vascular space stays open because you need that to push the cells around. And then within 24 hours, you make brand new, non toxic, non inflamed, non oxidized, non cancer, perfectly baby fresh plasma all by yourself. And
Wow.
it's a very safe procedure. It's very effective at what it does. And so we just took that whole concept and we ended up doing it a series of them. So you do one and then we'd wait 4 weeks and do another one. And people are like, why would you wait 4 weeks in between? Because we studied the amount of toxins that occurred after you had one plasma change. And what we saw was at 3 weeks, but especially at 4 weeks, that's when all the toxins came back and equilibrated in your system. Because if I'm
Ah.
going to do multiple plasma exchanges, I want to make sure every time I do it, I want to get the toxins out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but this whole thing with serial plasma exchange has been around. We treated many different diseases, neurologic diseases like Alzheimer's, myasthenia gravis, Guillain-Barré. We treated kidney disease. There's certain diseases of kidney from antibodies that we use plasma exchange for. We use it for autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and other type of autoimmunities. We use it on blood disorders because there's certain blood disorders where you're making coagulation factors you don't want, and they all in the plasma, so we can take them out.
Hmm.
It wasn't until 2 years ago, myself is the one that figured out not only can we take all this other stuff out, we can take toxins out too.
Yeah.
And this is the first time everybody made that connection. Even though we knew toxins were increasing in the universe, everybody knew it was increasing in us. Nobody had put it together like we have this process that takes all the bad stuff out. And nobody ever thought about thinking chronic toxins as a bad thing. And that's probably because even traditional medicine yet is having a hard time struggling around the idea that, what do you mean toxins are at the base of everything bad? And they are. That today, it's all about the toxins. If your toxins aren't causing the problem, they're exacerbating the problem. And how many toxins does every person have? The average person walking down the street has somewhere around 20,000 toxins in them because there's about 200,000 toxins in the universe. Now they have them on all various levels, but it's kind of like thinking about 20,000 nails. They can be all sorts of different sizes. You can have real big ones and a lot of small ones. They're all doing damage.
Yeah.
And the more nails you got, the more damage you're going to be having done. So that's my analogy for everybody to talk about plasma exchange. But the interesting thing is it's tolerated by people very well. It's very safe. Now, there's some things that you have to do with plasma exchange because it takes everything out, the bad, the good, and the ugly.
Right.
So you have to make sure that people's glucose is being maintained because that's where your blood sugar is. It's in your plasma. If I'm taking 2/3 of your plasma out, I'm taking 2/3 of your sugar out. So I have to make sure that you don't get your sugar get too low. Also, there's things that happen when you take that much plasma out because that sudden shift in the inflammation, the body relaxes and it can actually, the vasculature can open up because it's going, for the first time, I don't have to be under 10, and their blood pressure goes down a little bit. So we have to be able to give them some fluids, but they're very minor problems. We've, in the last 300 procedures that we've done, we've had 2 patients. One patient had a little bit of low blood sugar, and that's because they didn't eat before they got the procedure, which we always tell everybody, have a full meal before the procedure. Number 2, the second person got started on a blood pressure pill. They forgot to tell us when we were interviewing them. They had started on a new pill, so that interfered with the blood pressure during the procedure. All we had to do was just give them some fluids and they were fine. So 2 very minor, easily correctable issues. Probably the biggest thing with plasma exchange for some patients, especially people with chronic infections and toxicities, is they do what's called a Herxheimer's reaction. Have you ever heard that word?
I've heard the term, but I don't know it.
It's called the patient Herxing is what it's a nickname there. It's a short term, that slang that we use in medicine.
Yeah.
Herxing, if you can imagine people who are so toxic that their immune system is suppressed so much, and they got infections all over the place because their immune system is basically unconfused and not able to work. Suddenly take out all the toxins. And within a day, the immune system is waking up, getting its head up, looking around, going, what the hell? Who's having this party? And it goes to town. And it can go from 0 to 60 pissed off immune system in 6 hours. And suddenly you have 102 fevers, headaches, every aches in the bed, and every bone in your body aches, every muscle aches. You get diarrhea, you throw up, you have a hard time keeping fluids down. You're so tired, but you can't sleep. The headache's terrible. Many of the clients have called it's imagine having influenza and getting hit by a truck at the same time.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
And so it's like, that's a pretty dramatic reaction. It's not fatal, but it's very uncomfortable. And when I talk to patients, they're like, what can I do? I'm like, fluid, flush. Because it's you got this immune system that has woken up like crazy. But plasma exchange is an incredibly well-tolerated procedure. It takes about 4 hours in the office. The first hour you're there, the nurse is assessing you with your blood pressure and your heart rate, and we're checking your what your hemoglobin is on your finger. We're getting a weight on you so we can calculate what your plasma volume is. The biggest part about the plasma exchange that makes people nervous is because you have two needles, one in each arm. And these are
Right.
not small needles. Okay, Joe? These are the bigger size needles, plus they're made out of steel. So they're not the rubber catheter or plastic catheter. These are steel needles because the machine actually sucks the blood out, and we don't want the plastic ones would collapse because of the suction. So you have
Ah,
these steel needles. But at MD Lifespan, we figured out, it's all about the nursing and the trained nurses. And so we make sure that all of our patients have a nurse who has been especially well trained in ultrasound guided insertion of needles. Of the last 300 patients we've done, we haven't missed a poke once.
wow. So ultra. Okay. So you're taking extra effort to, yeah, strategically find the right place for that needle.
Right. So we can show you, but it's basically an ultrasound one, and you're going up and down the arm, and you're looking to see where the veins, where the valves are, where the veins are the biggest diameter, because that's where we want the tip of that in, because you want the needle to be sitting right in the center of that. So as it's drawing in the fluid, if it gets up too close to the wall, it can actually suck on the wall, and then you get less, you get less. Um, so it's all about strategically, and we have ways
Makes
at
sense.
MD
Yeah.
Lifespan. We come up with a method that is able to keep that vein well dilated at the same time. So we haven't had trouble with patients getting their IV started and maintain, because that's the one part that nobody likes to get stuck with a needle. I'm sorry, but
No.
yeah, go ahead and stick me. No, nobody likes that. And I've been stuck with needles my whole life, but it's like
Sure.
nobody likes it. And so having nurses which have that level of competency is very reassuring.
How close is it to donating plasma? I'm sure people. Yeah.
It's very close. I mean, it's very close. The difference is that in donating plasma, we take out about 500 to 600 milliliters of plasma, and we donate it. When you're doing a plasma exchange, the reason we have an exchange instead of a donation is I'm taking out so much plasma, I have to give you something back
Mm.
because the volume, you're going to be so volume deficient. Because I'm taking about 2/3 of your liquid part of your blood. Now remember, most people have about 6 liters of blood. 3 of that is cells, 3 liters of that is liquid.
Mm.
So it's about half and half.
Okay.
Out of that 3 liters, I'm taking out 2 liters in the plasma exchange. So I have to give you back 2 liters of something in order to keep your volume and your vascular
Wow,
space
that's
open. And
incredible.
that's the
Yeah.
albumin. So instead of just taking out 500 cc's, which I don't have to give you anything back, I'm taking out 2 or 2.5 liters. And in some cases on the bigger guys, we're doing 3 or 3.5 liters.
Okay. And you can measure all that prior to then, right?
This machine is wonderful, excuse me, because it measures out exactly how many milliliters that we have to do for every patient. So that one
Wow.
person said, well, I'm smaller, I want to do less. It's automatically less because it's a calculated exchange of what we call one volume, which is 63% of your plasma. So whether you're a big guy or a small lady, we're still doing the same percentage of
Right.
plasma in everybody.
Got it. Wow. And back to the whole talk of toxins, and we talked about the environment and how they all hang out in our body for a lot of years. So
Yes.
they're in the plasma. I mean, that's why you're targeting the plasma with this whole
The toxins are in everything, including the plasma. Let's be real
included.
clear here. The toxins are in
Mhm.
the fat, the muscles, the bones, the brain, and the organs. It's everywhere. But the problem is the toxins don't come out of the body easily because we don't have mechanisms that know how to take care of these toxins because they didn't exist when we were evolving. So that's
Perfect.
why we
Yeah.
get what's called bioaccumulation. In other words, you can have toxins that have been in your body your entire life
Yeah.
because your body can't get rid of them. Now, you can sweat them out. You can take binders. You can take chelators. There's a lot of things you can do, and you can get those levels down somewhat, but not very effectively, and not for all the toxins that you have. There's certain toxins like the PFAs, the forever chemicals, or the microplastics that the government has already said on the CDC website. These are not possible to be removed
Mm.
until now.
That's incredible. I mean, the until now thing, and I want to, maybe this ties into just what you've learned. You said over the last couple of years doing this and pioneering this. Like so prior to you actually realizing this is possible, I know you were working with people on toxins
Yeah.
beforehand, but
Yeah.
you had different procedures, right? You were kind of singly going about toxins and trying to get them out of people's bodies.
I was asked by a well-known, well-respected physician at a very well-known high institution of higher learning, why you? Why was it you that figured this out? And I tell them very simply this. I've been in the field of medicine that has to do with health and wellness for 30 years. I was in the ER as a trauma doc for 10 years. For the last 30 years, I've been in the field of health and wellness. And part of the health and wellness is watching these toxins, because these are things that people are coming to me and they had problems even back 20 years ago. And for the last 20 years, I've tried to get them out of people. And
Mm.
I've treated thousands and thousands of patients. I had 127 clinics with thousands of patients each, and we would treat them on getting their toxins out. And we had this protocol for mold, and this protocol for pesticides, and this protocol for metals. We utilized more or less 8 different protocols with different varying amount of nutrients, supplements, herbals, chelation IV, ozone IV, all these different things that we would do to try to get these chemicals out. But over the years of treating people, it got to be the point where I used to see people get better 20 years ago, to 10 years ago, they stopped getting better, to 5 years, nobody got better.
Mm. Okay.
And what I knew at that point was there's too many toxins in these people, and I don't have a tool big enough to get them out at that point.
Wow.
So back in the day when toxins were lower and people had less, those protocols worked, especially when they had fewer. But now they have more and more amount, and it's causing all these breakdown of all these systems. The old tools didn't work anymore.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, everything's exponentially growing. There's new ones being tested, and now you have the data to prove all this stuff
Yeah.
as well, which I think is the biggest piece. Now you have numbers to show, you have the mechanisms, and tell us about like what you're actually seeing with the data after some of these plasma exchange
Not
protocols. Yeah.
not after some of these, after every one of these.
One. Wow. Yeah.
So here's the everybody's toxins comes down. Everybody. That's how effective this is. Now the question is, how far down do we have to get it? I don't have a really great answer for that at this time. We're 2 years out, and we've seen patients that have done 3 plasma exchanges. We have patients that have done 5. We've had patients do 8. We base those numbers on the patient's symptoms and how sick they were, the number of toxins, the number of inflammatory and oxidative markers, how severe their immune system was impacted, and their genetics. There's all these what we calculate. We calculated toxic burden, and then we look at all these other factors of what we call the toxin impact, and we come up with these ways of stratifying people into different categories. And what we see in all these people in the long term is everybody who adopts the avoidance techniques and has undergone the plasma exchange and continues with our maintenance program, their numbers keep going down at 1 year and 2 years. Now, is that forever going to be low in those? I don't know. I don't think so, because the toxin levels are still increasing more and more. We're going to get into this whole situation like maybe these avoidance techniques that we're doing become ineffective. Right now, they're effective.
You have to address the issues right now. I mean, because if not, I mean, we see where all the numbers are going with toxins in the environment and how it's affecting us right now. It's infinitely fascinating, and I know on this podcast and future episodes we'll highlight even more deeper
Yeah, we're going to
aspects.
talk about plasma exchange and the brain. We're going to talk about plasma exchange and the coronary arteries. We're going to
Yeah.
be talking about plasma exchange and cancer. We're going to be talking about plasma exchange, mamas to be and the babies that will be. We're going to be talking about plasma exchange and autoimmune diseases. We're going to be talking about plasma exchange and chronic infections. These people, these poor souls that have been sick for 20 years because they can't get rid of this infection because we just can't get to it or haven't been able to get to it before now.
Wow. Yeah. So stick here, and of course success stories along the way. You know, I want to
Well, we're
definitely
going to bring you
highlight some of the.
patients. We're going to bring you a lot of patients. We have,
Oh, I can't wait.
I've never seen so many patients adamant to want to tell their story as I have. And I was one of the big doctors out there that was giving natural hormones to women 20 years ago, and that would change their lives in menopause. But this is different because it's every walk of life, rich or poor, old or young, black or white or brown or yellow. It doesn't matter. I mean, we have, it's just everybody is affected on this cellular level by these levels of toxins. And we're going to talk to toxicologists who've been in this field for 40 years, like Dr. Lynn Patrick or Dr. Heath Joliffe. We're going to be talking to cardiologists who've been pushing the fact that the inflammation that's causing heart disease is toxic based. We're going to be talking to neurologists that know that these neurodegenerative diseases are all the neurotoxins that are acting on, even if they're not causing it, they're certainly accelerating it. We have a lot of interesting guests coming up.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. We're just getting started here. So, where like at this time where people are maybe just like, oh, I'm getting it now. I see how it all fits. Like, yeah, toxins. I can't control what's happening out there in the world. I could do my part here in my house, which is the most toxic place. But now I have an option of what to do with my body, what's inside of me. Whereas before that wasn't the case. Where should they let them know where they could go? At least like have a conversation, talk with you guys.
People need to understand, and this is a business decision that all the doctors I work with made. We made MD Lifespan a public benefit corporation. And people make, what's that? Well, that means that we place the mission of the company over the profits. And that's a legal definition, so that if at any point down the road, a big company comes and wants to buy us and maybe put us on the shelf, and that happens all the time with discoveries like this, they can't, because we actually have an independent board that will look at these people and say, I'm sorry, but it's out of my hands. It's out of the investor's hands. It's an independent board that does it. So I just want to make sure people understood that we are out to the best of our ability to detect and remove toxins from the public. And that means everybody. Now, right now, this is an expensive procedure, but we've already been able to reduce it by 20%. And we're looking to keep reducing these prices, especially as we grow our network. But people can, if they want answers and they want to talk, they can come to the MD Lifespan website. That's mdlifespan.com. And they can schedule a call and they will talk with one of our doctors, no charge. And we will go over, answer their questions. We will go over any data they want to discuss with us. And then in some cases, patients may want to proceed forward for a TPE evaluation. If that's the case, then we have another meeting with them to see if they qualify. If they do, which would be the most effective protocol to have. All these visits, Joe, are no charge. They're just us wanting to make sure that patients have the best possible information.
Beautiful. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do here on this podcast is give and bring that awareness. I've said it before. And then I know on your website with the handbooks, the guidebooks that you have, and obviously the time of your doctors as well.
Right.
There's a lot of giving happening.
Don't forget the toxin testing. You don't even have to talk to one of our doctors. You can order toxin tests just yourself and get the results yourself. So we want to make these tools available to people. And whether that's talking to a doctor, having handouts, having podcasts, having videos, having a toxin test, we want to put the tools in your hands.
Yeah. Well, we all have the option now. So, thank you again for laying it all out there and making it even possible for us to get to this point. I'm excited to see where it goes. So, yeah. Dr. Savage, thank you. Appreciate you, man. And
thanks so much.
Time.